Hello, and we are back for part two with Dr. Geri Peak in our
That's
Women
me.
Crush Wednesday series.
We
I'm
are.
Tiffany Presme. This is 1Source Management Consulting, and we are the home of Peaceful Project Management. One of the questions, or the next question that I was going to ask you, was about challenges, especially as a business owner. And that is, what kind of challenges have you bumped into along your pathway? And was there anything that really surprised you along the way?
Yeah, that's such a great question. There's a lot of challenges that are structural in terms of like how you organize your business. Earlier, I mentioned that I'm a sole proprietor. The reason I did that was out of exhaustion, out of the things that I was dealing with. I just decided to stay as a sole proprietor. And it's not a smart business move in terms of protecting your money, protecting your business. I do have business insurance, of course, but there are some reasons that it is better to go ahead and incorporate. And then there are some benefits from not incorporating. For example, in the state of Maryland, if you run up into any trouble and you lose your good standing, you have to get your good standing back. That doesn't apply to sole proprietors. So if somebody insists on having it, you can't provide it because you can't get it. And if you jack something up, you can't be penalized for it because you can't get it. Usually, if you explain to people that you're a sole proprietor, they just waive it. So, so that's a benefit. It shouldn't be played with for any reason, but, that's just a benefit. I think some of the challenges that I have a petty challenge right now, which is in the midst of a lot of things going on last summer, I missed the deadline for renewing two of my DBAs. And they've had a change in how sole proprietors or organizations are signed up to the Maryland state website. So when I went to go and do it, after I had my forms and everything, the holdup is an interesting challenge. Who among you have checks anymore? I haven't had a check.
Like a physical check?
Physical check. If you renew within the time zone, you can renew online, but if you don't, you have to get a physical check.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. So this is me hemming and hawing for a year whether I'll get one checkbook so I can write these two checks, or just get two checks from my mom like I did the last time I did it when they didn't have online services. Now they've moved to online services, but only if you do it within the time window.
I'm Team Ask Mom all the time. So.
Yeah, Team Ask Mom. And I haven't done it. So now they've got a new protocol. And as I was looking, it's like now you have to sign up as a sole proprietor. And as I went to sign up, I was like, wait a minute, now they're treating me like I'm a new sole proprietor. So I just cleared everything out and I said, I need more time to think about this, or to work with somebody who has more knowledge about the new law. So one of the challenges is just the laws are changing all the time. The rules are changing all the time. I think the pandemic was very helpful in getting people out of their stodgy systems that governments have put into place, but the way that they implement them is the way governments put things into place. And I think that's true also for large bureaucratic institutions as well, where it's just very difficult for them to be really facile and flexible. I think another huge challenge that I have had is how to articulate your work that is a process as opposed to a thing, a product, and to ensure that you have language, seek your lawyer, adjust your contract. I think collaboration is very challenging because for the most part, our system recognizes two-party contracts. So that there's really no way to have a collaborative contract. So you always have to defer to hierarchy, even when you're trying to flatten hierarchies or avoid hierarchies. Now, flat hierarchy structures have been around for, let's see, I think it was 2020 when I was looking at something, they said really some of the business institutions that we're using are about 50 years old. So let's call them about 70 years old now. So these are, people act like this is set in stone in history. It's just set in the memory of business. You know, so having those kind of institutions built up, those kind of legal structures built up, those systemic structures built up, cause a lack of fluidity in building relationships that are durable legally for a business, because they have to be a certain way. So you always have to be like a contractor with subs. You can never be a collaboration of entities. And so that's
unless you come together and almost create a new entity, and like, who really wants to do
right.
that?
And then when you do that,
project versus an ongoing relationship.
and if you do that, you're not really creating collaboration, because the structure of that entity, as how it's going to be recognized, even if it has collaborative leadership, is then now you've created one entity. Right. So if there was a reason to have that autonomy and richness and diversity, now you've created one entity, and the rules that govern the one entity are probably going to be more structured than the 5 entities that are coming together to do the work. So lead and subs.
That's a really interesting. Okay, so when you first said collaboration was a challenge, I was gonna be like, no, it's not. You're the best collaborator I know of. But then you bring in a very practical point, which is the legal part of it.
That's right.
Contractual part of it is the actual challenge. Because I must say, again, I'll be taking little pages from your book here and there. And one of the things that I saw is that when you bring people together for a project, that it is the best collaboration I think I ever get a chance to be a part of. It's very transparent. It is very open, like there is real collaboration that happens. And also you're very organized. So
Yeah. I mean, and even I think that being a sole proprietor, one of the things that I'm able to do is I'm able to favor my subs when there are challenges with receiving payment, for example. Like if I'm in an LLC, I don't have the same kind of flexibility to grab from other project funds without it being a misappropriation of funds from their line item, because I can just owner distributed funds, saying it's like, okay, I'm taking this 20 grand and I'm paying everybody, and then I'll worry about it later, because so that gives me a sort of fluidity. So one of the things I like about being a sole proprietor is it allows me to be more in service to the people I'm collaborating with. Most people don't want to do that. And that's not even what we're told. We're told that you get yours and then you worry about everybody else. But I like to worry about everybody else and then get mine. Because that's what God said to me.
And I don't disagree. I think you're right on the money. It is a challenge though. Like I know personally, I want my business to be nice and successful. There are things on a practical level that I want to achieve through business ownership. But I really don't want to sacrifice my own ethics to get there. And your girl does like to share. I like to share. I hate gatekeeping. And it's like, but you're selling the information to me.
Yeah. And see, the one thing that I know some really great collaborators, but the one thing that continues to get in the way, sort of harkening back to what we said earlier about, backbiting. But when people get in a beef, it's like, they're in a beef, and so like, how do we heal rifts? We're gonna clash. We're gonna brush up again. People are gonna do things we don't like, what have you. Are we unity builders, or are we like, you're gone, that's it, don't work with you anymore? And there are some times that, like another thing I love about being having my own firm, it's like, prove yourself to me. If you can come in and do the work and you get it done and you're reliable, you're golden. You're here. If I hire you and you don't do something, I don't have to talk bad about you. I don't have to write nasty things about you. I don't report to your file, the way I was an employee. I give you your money for the work that you've done. I don't hire you again.
And, I think that in a lot of corporate environments, we learn to do that, because if somebody's work isn't meeting your expectation, right? You have to prove to like 2 or 3 other people why that person shouldn't be there. And in the course of doing that, that's where it's very easy to begin, talking down about that person. And, maybe their skills don't fit, but that doesn't mean that they need to be told down, because you got to tear somebody down just in order to get an okay.
That's right.
To be able to let them go.
And it's not even necessary in an at-will state. This is another thing that it's not a challenge that I have, but it's a challenge that comes up where people get trapped in trying to prove these things that they had to prove in their government job or in their corporate job. But in your sole proprietorship, in your LLC firm, and can be built into any kind of corporate structure that you set up, is it's an at-will situation. We think, like you could literally write, we see you as capable. Sometimes your capabilities don't come through here. You have 6 months. If it doesn't work, goodbye. Here's your money. That's it. I don't see the problem there. People think, people said, oh, you're so mean. I said, what's mean is stringing people along as you try to prove and demonize them. You're standing between them and their bliss project that they could be in right now. If you release them, bless and release them, excuse me. My voice is fading away, sort of like my picture.
See? Okay, so we've had a whole conversation about this, y'all, right? I want y'all to see something real quick. Look at Geri when I'm not in the picture. And when I come into the picture, the computer removes all the melanin from her body.
The friendliest, don't you know?
I was like, no, I think it's the lighting. I think it's the lighting. And just she moved it. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's algorithms. They're fun.
They are. Okay, so can we talk for a quick second, speaking of algorithms, because you're one of the few business owners who's not in tech, who actually enjoys tech as much as I enjoy tech. And that is the tech du jour, which is definitely AI, and that's like ChatGPT. There's the Google Bard. But
there's also like the NFTs and all of those kind of things where people are digitizing intellectual property and then making claims on it. It's the latest land grab. Brought to you from the dominant culture. You're welcome.
Look, somebody said, you're not going to keep selling me an overpriced PDF. I know a PDF when I see a PDF. It's like, you know what I'm going to do on your NFT? Right click, save. That's what I'm going to do now.
Girl, look, I'm like, is this some sort of elitism thing? Because I'm like, when you flash it on the screen to tell me that somebody bought it for $2 million, I took a screenshot. No, I didn't, because it was ugly.
Look, I don't want your bored apes, okay? Because that was the thing that was in fashion for a while. And I do think it's right. There was a lot of like, the cool kids are doing it. Y'all just not cool. You don't know about it yet. But as a lifelong nerd, I'm like, y'all not cool for that.
Yeah, I mean,
y'all are not cool for that.
I think we misperceive. We in our society, we give human attributes to things. Maybe it's the Eurocentric culture, as our friend Michael used to talk about. Are you
talking about the Howard County thing?
No, well, I'm talking about Edwin Nichols. Edwin Nichols. We were talking about Edwin Nichols and his work on axiology, which Dr. Nichols has these levels, or not even levels. It's just people have a way of doing, and some people gravitate towards one way or the other, but we all can do, like, we all build relationships. Everybody needs to build relationships. Black and brown people tend to be centering relationships over objects and things. People classified themselves as white. They culturally classify things over relationships, right? So this is where these things that are created based on the limitations of human capacity to write code, to generate information autonomously or apparently autonomously, we begin to attribute human attributes to that, like AI is doing something to us. AI can't do nothing to us because we created it. I know you and I might not be able to write those kind of programs, but that's only because that's not what we study.
Exactly.
So I just saw something that
I think we
Timnit
could.
Gebru,
I think we could if we
and I apologize, sis, if I'm saying your name wrong, but the woman who was wronged by Google, who was head of their ethics AI department.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Timnit Gebru. Look it up. I think it's Gebru.
And it was their work on AI ethics and the lack of ethics in AI. And
She wrote a paper and they fired her.
Yeah, they pushed her right on out.
Yeah, goodbye. And
wasn't it two of them though?
There was, yes, there were, and there were some in the department who left because she left. She was pushed out as well. Look at your news feed, search, you'll find the true story. We may not have it accurately. Also about anything I'm saying off the top of my head, by the way, let the AI help you to get the factual information. So when it comes to stealing information, creating things that don't generate from your own intelligence, people using that, the problem is not AI. The problem is people want cheat. People want to steal. People want a shortcut or get around. People want to save time. Let's look at the college level, right? So the way we structure higher education is sort of this marathon of courses with each one feeling like they can give so much work that it makes it untenable. We've had the kids practice this in middle and high school so that they're already ready for this level of stress and already anxious and maybe suicidal and all these other things going on as they come into their college career. Now we have a tool that can help them get a paper written quickly when they're trying to get all these things done. If we don't have an ethical premise being the first purpose for people, if we say, shortcuts and, you get in front of somebody else, you are the thunder thief. I learned that from a foundation.
The thunder thief?
Yeah, if they're putting out something the same day as somebody else, they got to figure out how to steal their thunder so they get all the shine on them, right? So if this is our society, the problem is that we have groomed people to be cheaters, liars, stealers, just a little bit. If it's big theft, we don't like it. But if it's a little bit of theft, it's okay. But then if it goes up against how we feel, if we feel like, hey, if I'd done that, I was wrong because I didn't know we could cheat like that, then we're mad about it. If we had a society of people who, number one, said, hey, competition is actually, there's data to show that it doesn't actually lead to the best results. You can get good results out of beating people and make them do something, but you get better results out of encouragement and cooperation. So if we're encouraging and cooperating, will we continue to structure higher education the way we've structured it? And therefore have to have secondary education be set up in a certain way, guiding towards that, knowing that a lot of people will fail out of that, and we can use them in the prison system and in low-level jobs and exploitative jobs, so that we have our working poor, so that we can have these masses of income. I'm not an economist. If you don't like what I'm saying, go find some economists and challenge them on it. I don't. I'm just repeating what I hear grown folks say and what I observe.
Not you say grown folks.
What I hear at my big age.
You are the grown folks.
At my big age, I said, I'm repeating what I hear grown folks say. And so we have this system underlies everything we create. And everything we create can be misappropriated and used to be a destructor in our societies, or it can be a builder in society. AI is great for searching information databases faster than you could ever do it. It's great for getting factual information. Is it this point? Was it this point or that point? Everything from should you wrap your ribs in foil to grill them or not? Internet will tell you that. So these kind of things are very useful to just parse information quickly. But we're not doing the work to restructure our society, first ethically, so that the principles of love and oneness are first. I'm caring for people, I'm doing what's best for people first. Then how can I construct things that are helpful and useful? Then how can I use the tools that are coming around to help me do those things? So we have tools that can help us do those things, but we're not developing our own capacity. Look at science fiction. Science fiction, I know you're a geek. I'm a geek. We're blurs. That's right. Science fiction always presumes that we continue to iterate and improve technology. We have spaceships, we'll have, all these kinds of high-tech things, communication systems and everything. We're growing food better. We're doing all these things better. But you know who never gets better in science fiction?
The people?
The people. They still act like the same jerks they were,
Like
2, 4, 500, 1,000 years ago. Or they
I
get
have a
worse.
better way to be terrible.
Because
now.
people are trying to make comment on our society. But the truth is, if we're advancing ourselves every day and becoming better every day, what we see in a tool changes because our capacity to understand how to utilize a tool for good without harming people will advance if we advance along those lines. If that's our discourse.
Mm-hmm.
If our discourse is exploitative, then we will get better at exploitation. That's our current society. So AI serves exploitation to the extent that we are in a society that focuses on and enhances its capacity for exploitation and harm. When we decide to center love, center oneness, center belonging, center collective thriving, collective power building, eliminating and redressing harm, then our tools, we will begin to think in new ways and we'll be able to use the tools in new ways. So for me, the argument over AI is an argument that is really about not taking responsibility for our unfortunate collective agreement that it's cool to harm people.
Oh, yes.
Now, you and I, of course, don't believe in harming people until somebody pisses us off.
Right. Usually.
Yeah, usually.
Usually.
Usually. So there's always work for everyone to do. We're not perfect. Mm-hmm. But if our discourse is around the trajectory of collective benefit, mm-hmm. we'll get better and better collective benefit. That means you have to let go of ideas, though. Like if people say, oh, we have collective benefit, but we have to have competition. Competition leads to collective harm. Mm-hmm. So you gotta want to let go of that.
So can I go back to one thing you were mentioning about college? Because it was one of those things that going from college into a professional environment really it was like a slight brain break, right? Because mm-hmm. as a student, when I was a student, all through school, all in college, it's very important that every word is your word. Mm-hmm. Every idea is your idea. They want the juice straight from your heart and your mind. Mm-hmm. And then once you get into the working world, that's what, I don't know if they still call it the working world, but once you get into
working? Once you get into the working world, I'm sorry.
Then it's it becomes, then you realize that if everything comes from you from here and here, then that means that you probably are reinventing the wheel at least 5 times. And then what is more important is efficiency. So now it's no longer, yes. So now it's no longer that cool to be writing everything, from the top, to start with a clean page. Now they're saying, hey, if you wrote us this plan and we know that we could find this plan in 5 other places, then we know that you have now wasted time. You're not efficient at your job.
Yeah. And so there's so many things. The first of one is that, there's nothing wrong with, honestly, who didn't go back to, I remember writing a paper about India in 6th grade and making it a paper about Bangladesh in 9th grade.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Look, steal from yourself.
Yeah, I stole from myself. And the encyclopedia, because that was in the dark ages and we didn't have all these tech tools.
I loved having an encyclopedia. So I don't know how my parents got a set of encyclopedias.
They were sold to them at their home by a traveling salesperson, probably. That's what happened. They give out one a month.
But they could not have afforded that whole set that I had in my room.
Everybody,
I feel like they were teachers and they
it was a scam. It was a scam. They went around. So we have a little distance in age. I remember them going around and selling those things and saying your child really needs it for their schooling. And Lord, we used it, didn't we?
I used my set of encyclopedias.
Yeah. Now we have Wikipedia.
Yeah, now we have Wikipedia. But I remember those sets of it. I loved my set.
And Wikipedia is an example. Because it was made by common people, people go in there and mess around with it, and people are like, Wikipedia is wrong, it's bad, it's so and so, it's good. But as a collective tool, it has emerged to be a reliable source. That sometimes people decide they want to blow it up for reasons kind of like, system structures, buildings, and people.
No, they took the.
But for the most part, Wikipedia is useful at this point.
It is very.
Look at us go collaborating.
And honestly, I just like to find ways to use new stuff. So I would say there's a part of AI, of all of the different, like, the Chat GPTs, the Dollies, the Bard and everything that is like, I have to be careful. It's like, as a business owner, you want to maximize, at least for me, because I don't have a whole bunch of people in my business. I got to maximize, make the most out of every little thing. And it's like, is it shiny? Like, is this a shiny thing, or is this going to be a useful thing? And so far, for me, AI and like ChatGPT and Bard and stuff has been useful because it's much easier to write from, at least for me, from not a completely blank piece of paper.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a benefit. And what I'm like, a friend of mine who had the first ISP in Baltimore, CharmNet, he is looking at utilizing these tools to improve access to information search for a variety of purposes. So, and the other person I meet with him to study actually on Friday mornings sometimes, and another individual who's working in the tech field. And so we talk about this sometimes. And I think that that's where the use lies. And I'm not even though my art school graduate daughter and I have had many conversations about this, I'm not even opposed to the idea that you describe an image to illustrate, a slide deck, something, and it gives you some sort of image, as long as the arm's not coming out of the forehead, as sometimes happens. But we shouldn't be trying to pass that off as art.
Yeah.
I make it, how many of us as small business owners or large business owners have you're either doing your own thing, you're hiring somebody to do that, or you have a department that creates graphics for you. And it's basically work made for hire. It's not their artwork. It's not their and they don't have to be super creative. They just have to get an idea across. If you can do that with 2 circles and a triangle, that's just as good as if you did a lifelike portrait.
Yeah. I guess they're not trying to like stir the soul. You're trying to make a visual representation of an idea or something.
And so I don't have any problem with the idea of it. The problem is when people want to then say, this is a high form of art and we don't need artists anymore. Which people are saying because, or you're trying to pass something off as art, or then if somebody has a style that looks a certain way, then they're accused of, AI, it's just like all of that is where the problem lies. So, but the only way to get through it is for us to be more honest and more honest, more integrous, if that's a word, more truthful.
Just better.
We have to be better.
Yeah, because I do feel like there's a certain point where, like, some folks, it doesn't matter, what is coming up, they're going to try to find a way to exploit others using it. And the tool could be fluffy bunnies, and they'll try to find a way to exploit people using fluffy bunnies. It's like,
right.
The tool isn't the scary thing in this sense. It's the people and how we wield it and what we think of as being normal and expected behavior.
In reaction to that, having anyone, many people are just like, if it's coming from that quarter or arena, it's bad. Oh boy, wow, look, old lady showing her arm.
We don't have hope.
This is real woman power. Flag it. It made you snort. My cat snorts sometimes when she's mad.
What?
And she's like, like going to the bed or something like, It's the funniest thing. Sorry, Joy, I called you out.
She probably mad as hell. Like, you see, I'm miserable. That's what you're
I
laughing.
called you out. Yeah, that's pretty funny when that happened. She's so cute. She can do no wrong. Just if she snorts, it's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You got any other questions for me?
I do, actually, I do. So I think because I gotta say, I always love talking to you because you make me think more than I normally do, which is always kind of a lot. And I feel like you always expand the size of my thoughts. Like I didn't have those thoughts out there until you're like, have you thought about X, Y, and Z? But the last question that I have interview wise is about peace. And it is, with the understanding that you are an entrepreneur and that you have rules in your community and your family and responsibilities and that you're a caretaker, it's like, how do you achieve peace while you balance all of those responsibilities?
So I think having clear boundaries is very helpful. Um, I think that on a day-to-day peace basis, you can't have peace every single day because sometimes things blow up and you have to decide, do I want to get this done? Do I want to keep this contract? Do I want my kid to be alive? Now we're going to have to hi, I can't do what we said we were going to do because my kid fell on the soccer field and banged their head and we're on our way to the emergency room and that's how it's going to be. So first, understanding that you have the right to ask for what you need from whomever. And our corporate, our work culture is one of it's not, I want to say subterfuge, but that's not the thing. I don't want to say lying, that is the thing. But we try to not let people know what the real deal is. And it's considered unprofessional to tell the truth about what's going on. It's ridiculous.
Because it's almost like if you show vulnerability, then you might get somebody who will help you and appreciate the vulnerability, but you might get somebody who's like, yes, and now I'm gonna get you.
That's true. And so it goes back to the same thing with AI. I mean, in the end, it goes back to, will we mature into the adulthood of humanity, or are we going to stay in our petty adolescent stage, which seems to be deepening? But it's always darkest before the dawn, and it's always most petty before people have to just grow.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
Yeah. Well, it may take longer than we can wait, but we can contribute. So that's the thing. We might not be able to see the world we work in transform, but we can make the world we work in different.
Yes.
Just like you were saying, about some of the things, the way that I construct my working environment, I lean on certain principles. One of the principles is preferring your brother, sister, family member to yourself. And this is something when I have trainings, really working with people, either collaboration, organizational development, professional development. It can be Virtues Project. It can be related to racial equity and justice and liberation across the board. When I ask grown-ups to imagine a world where everyone prefers their human family members to themselves, their reaction surprised me. Is they're like, then I wouldn't get anything. I wouldn't have anything. Everybody would take from me. I wouldn't have a thing. We as adults are so used to the dog-eat-dog world that we can't imagine. I just said everybody prefers everybody to themselves. So how can I even hand you something before you handed me something? You need this? I sure do. But they needed more. Oh, more for me? What? For me? So we can't even conceptualize that level of generosity and goodwill. And so because we can't conceptualize it, most people default back to fear space. This is very much fear aligned. It's very much fear aligned. It's very much being centered in one's amygdala, not being able. And when we're in amygdala hijack, we can't even use our prefrontal cortex well. So our thinky parts are going unused as we're stuck in fear. No wonder we can't imagine that in a world where everyone is helping everyone else, we'll be the only one missing out. This is true. Somebody will be falling over themselves, rushing to come over here and give us something. That's how that would work if we were there. Yeah. So, and that's, it's a mental exercise, but that's one of the principles I operate on. There's a training principle, the platinum rule. You've heard it. Do
Is
unto
this better than the
others.
golden rule?
The platinum rule is always better than the
Okay.
golden rule. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them, because it's not about you. I wish I thought of it myself.
So hold on, let me practice that one. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them.
Because it's not about you. And so, like, that mindset, it's not set in stone. Like, if you have an emergency and you always pay your people first and on time, if you have regular, steady people and they haven't gotten their sub in, but you're paying flat fee for service, you get a payment, it's divided 4 ways based on work daily rate, so and so. You get the money in, you give 1, 2, 3, this is mine. 1, 2, 3, mine. 1, 2, 3, mine. You have an emergency. Hey, folks, I have another payment coming in. I just received the payment for so and so, but my car blew up. Can you wait 2 weeks? And you know how they are. It might be 3 or 4. Tell me honestly if you can do it. They will say every time, 1, 2, 3, we get ours first. We don't know what you do about you, but we always get our money on time. Of course, we want to help you. Of course we do. The loyalty built by that kind of integrity will always come back to help you. Oh, by the way, if somebody does, have a snit fit about something like that, you can think about whether or not they'll hit a contract with you again later. And that doesn't mean you get rid of them. You're just like, oh, I'm not going to bother to ask so-and-so to help because I know they're not a helper.
Or if their situation is just such that they couldn't do it, it might be,
right,
I know that I need an XY amount of funding in order to bring this person on, because if anything goes sideways, they're going to be messed up.
That's right. And I mean, I was talking with my daughter last night. I know you've had Mindalyn Anderson on the show, and I'm godmother to her business. And she, not long ago, invited me to be a corporate auntie officially. So if anything goes sideways, this is something I'd never thought of. Nobody was talking about it when I founded my business, which was, again, sort of, I founded my business based on losing a job and just rolled myself right into an evaluation gig that I could start. When I left CARTA, the organization that I had co-founded, didn't have anything except the contracts I brought there. And some of the contracts I left there because I think of others but myself. And, so I didn't think about that kind of thing. I wasn't really looking at those kind of structures, which I should have been. But once I, was talking with my daughter last night, and I said, I have to think about how I'll bring up, like, for example, a kind of like Lisa Robinson, who does my data management, that some kind of plan so that if something happens to big old me, we know which one of our colleagues fills the gap on each of the programs in case somebody needs to walk in and take over. So those kind of things. Things to be.
So
I don't know how I got there.
So basically, collaborative succession planning. I love it.
Because mostly we do that when we have an entity where we're employing people. And if you're working as a collaboration of subcontractors or, in some sort of trust model, it's like, how do you move forward? So again, that goes back to the challenge of collaboration. How do you set that in stone? Making some agreements, making some arrangements. And I'm sure you all out there have more ideas about this because I didn't really think about it. So it'd be fun to hear what people are doing about that.
I would love to hear what people are doing about that, especially succession planning for very small businesses or micro businesses. I think that one of the things that you brought up earlier that I thought was like really cool is that I agree with you that I don't think I'm going to see a world where business is drastically different than it looks right now. I probably won't see that iteration of things, but I know I want to help work towards it.
Mhm.
And I know that this little tiny piece of the market that is my business, that, this is a space that I know can be safe, where I know that, the people that work with us are going to be treated well. They're going to be treated fairly, that the work is going to be done up to a certain standard, and that while we're getting it done, we're not going to be exploiting, that we're not looking to exploit.
Right.
So, is it a future that I'll live to see? Who knows? But is it a future that I want to help build? Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that the more we manifest it in our work, the more we see it. 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I would never have thought of the just economy kind of work that we're seeing, where people are really looking at how do we fund a future of good? How do we transform philanthropy? That one's hard. How do we look at collective resource mobilization, like the work of the Wealth Reclamation Academy of Practitioners, my friend Veronica Garcia, and a wonderful team of folks. I happen to be an advisor to that group. And, I learned about them through Old Money, New Systems. And yeah, it's just like people thinking about what we will do differently now. And so we can see those things now. Or like a gentleman I met at a social impact conference, which, yeah, social impact, I don't like it. I don't like it. It's just capitalizing, investment in social good with these like small, basically it's like small investments, and then people are talking about making larger investments, but they're betting on making money off of those investments rather than thinking about how we can transition society. I mean, really, it's like this. Anything that is focused on equity or adjacent to equity is focused on trying to bring people who have been intentionally marginalized to a place of parity.
Mm-hmm.
And our system doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has to be marginalized. Somebody has to be on the bottom to get, it's hierarchical, so it has to have those layers. So you can't have everybody benefit. So there's never going to be a time that really works.
Like we can't have a top unless there's a bottom, and everybody wants to be on top. And in order to do so, you got to kick somebody down to the bottom.
That's right. There is a potential for everyone being prosperous, having wealth in some kind of way. But what that means is that we have to eliminate extremes of wealth and poverty. We're just working on extremes of poverty.
I hear Jeff Bezos putting you on his shit list right now.
Who?
Jeff Bezos.
Who would that be? Am I supposed to care about that person?
Like, I think I just heard him saying, "Yep, Dr. Geri."
Come on, but that would be anybody who profits or benefits from the system, because the system has to run to. So you can be very well spoken about equitable practice, or you can be a robber baron. But in the system, it's a friend of mine wrote an article looking at modernity, and it's from the perspective of my faith community, and the role or place of Black people. And he was comparing theories of modernity, something I know nothing about. I was trained as a biochemist. Went to med school, fell out of that, went to public health school, got into like social sciences through public health. So I don't know anything. Poorly read. That's just the way it is. Everything is like, I like puzzles.
Poorly read.
I like logic puzzles. I like logic. I do like logic models. I like putting things together so I can see certain things, but there's foundational work that many of folks out there may have studied that I didn't because of my trajectory. Anyway, as he talks about these theories of modernity, he pointed out something I never thought about. They all point to a lily white future. They come from a time in history when people were looking to, as Darwin has written, come to a time where there's an elimination of the Australian, the Negro, and the great apes, and there is an advancement in Europeans as they know them today. I got the
Really?
quote, girl.
Really?
I got the quote. And such that there's been no link between the lesser apes and this advanced form of human, white human. So that those things were coming together during a time where people were looking through hierarchy, saying these are the lesser humans, we're the bestest humans, but we're not great. We're not there yet. We can get better, but we need these to just disappear. So there's no link.
We need some eugenics. We need some eugenics real quick. Get rid of these people.
Now, it may not be satisfying to all of you out there, but trust DNA is not for this. Because our DNA is always iterating. You can never get rid of all this ghostly beauty. Wait. Hi, I'm back.
It is so
This
tragic.
is so funny.
It literally just sucks all the color off of your body.
Yeah.
And puts it for me. Thank you.
Yeah. But I wonder, are you even more clear? No, you're about the same. I love technology anyway.
Even when it sets us the hell up.
Because this shows, more than anything, that if we don't have our own input into the systems and structures and the construction of the future, this is the reality that we're going to be dealing with.
And this is very true. And those folks who got done dirty over at Google were sort of ringing the alarm on just like this. And that we're not even going to talk about facial recognition and incarceration and monitoring and everything else, because that's a deep pool.
Right.
But
once again, technology tools aren't out to harm you. People are out to harm you. And people transformed will be your best solution.
That's a really good quote. I like that.
I just made that up.
We should write that down. We should write that down somewhere. Well, I will say thank you very much, Dr. Pete, and I am absolutely stealing that. I thank you very much for coming coming, I can be, but for being here and for chit-chatting with me. And we've got to do this again.
Yeah, that'll be fun.